Thank you for coming out today. If I get emotional, that's who I am. That's okay. But we gather today to celebrate the life of Carl Collins. He touched the hearts of everyone who met him with his infectious laughter and kindness. Let's honor his memory by sharing the stories and memories that made him so special. Carl and I first met in September 1965. He was a sophomore at Columbia Christian College, and I was a lowly freshman. We were roommates, along with 8 other guys in the same room. So how's that for roommates? Not too, anyway. Over the years, Carl and I and Kathy stayed in touch from Oregon to Texas when they lived there. They moved back to Oregon. They went to Taiwan, then over here to Vancouver. And we stayed in touch with them and just loved them dearly. Carl was my closest friend. One thing about Carl that some of you know, but not everybody, he loved to sing. He said, "Don, I don't have a good voice. I can't sing." And I said, "Carl, it's not about the quality of your voice. It's about the quality of your heart. That's what worship is about." Every Saturday night for 7 years, we had a worship team here that we practiced on Saturday nights. That was true worship. I will always remember those times. Carl and Kathy often said that was the most memorable times of worship in their lives, better than even Sunday mornings, because of who we were, our hearts pouring out to God. Would you pray with me? God, as we celebrate the life of Carl today, let us remember the love of life, his love for his wife and family, and his love for you. We rejoice that he is now with you, and we look forward to joining him with you as you call each one of us home someday. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. You all have a printed program, and if you don't have one, I'll share one with you. Carl Vernon Collins was born on February 26, 1946, in Ontario, Oregon, to parents Dudley and Blanche Collins. He was the oldest of 3 sons, Carl, Keith, and Gary. While the children were still young, their parents moved to North Portland, where his dad worked as a truck driver for Consolidated Freightways. After his brother Keith died of cancer in 1954, the family moved to Northeast Portland and then finally to Rockwood in Gresham, where Carl always said he enjoyed a great childhood and just played with neighbors. He loved people because he deeply respected several of his teachers, and he dreamed of becoming a teacher someday himself. After graduating from Centennial High School in 1964, he attended Columbia Christian College. It was during the CCC days, as we called it, that he met Kathy Curtis, who was also a student there. After Carl graduated from CCC, the couple married and moved to Searcy, Arkansas, where he attended Harding College and majored in education, biology, and physical education. Upon graduating with his BA degree from Harding in 1969, the couple moved to Dallas, Texas, where Carl began his teaching science, physical education, and coaching sports at Dallas Christian High School. During the summers of 1972 to 77, Carl and Kathy directed Camp Deer Run, an all-summer Christian youth camp in the piney woods of East Texas. In 1973, Carl added to his resume youth minister. Carl quit teaching for about 1 year to work full-time with the youth at the Han Freeway Church of Christ, which had a vibrant youth ministry at that time, working with the inner city community. It was during these years that Carl and Kathy adopted their sons, Craig and Bo. Carl dearly loved his Dallas Christian students and his Han Freeway teens. Carl called that his Camelot of life, because God had blessed him knowing so many wonderful people and giving him so many wonderful opportunities. Carl has always wanted to return to the Northwest, so in August 1975, he moved his family back to Gresham area, where he accepted a job at his old junior high school and got to teach with some of his favorite teachers before they retired. Carl earned his master's degree in education from Lewis and Clark College in 1980. After teaching for a few years at the junior high level, he transferred to Reynolds High School, where he continued to teach biology and coached football and throwing events for track. Their youngest son, Scott, was born in 1983. It was during those years that for the Reynolds School District that Carl grew as a teacher and explored new ways to bridge the gaps for struggling students. Carl received many awards and recognitions for his creative teaching and student mentoring. In the early days, in the 1990s, Carl was among a small group of teachers who redesigned the way their high school would be academically organized, which allowed more hands-on learning for science students. Carl partnered with the Forestry Service, as well as the Fish and Wildlife Rangers, to do various research projects with the students. His most famous trips were the Mount St. Helens to study the rebound after its 1980 eruption, to the coast to study tidal pools, and his favorite, the 4-day trip to Malheur in southeastern Oregon to study the geography, the history, its volcanoes, and do their annual migrating bird study. He also taught summer school students, during which he would take students through the Columbia River Gorge to study biology and geography. Carl served as the head of the Reynolds High School Science Department for many years prior to his first retirement in 2001. While waiting for Kathy to retire in 2006, Carl taught science for both Columbia Christian schools and was an adjunct teacher for Cascade College. He also continued to coach track at his old high school during that time. In 2006, Carl and Kathy moved to Taiwan to be teaching missionaries for the Morrison schools in both Taochung and Kaohsiung for 3 years. While there, Carl taught science to students from all over Asia, and Kathy taught English. They traveled as much as they could during those school breaks, visiting many areas of Taiwan, Bali, China, Malaysia, Singapore, Hong Kong, and the Philippines. And Carl often referred to these times as the cherry on top of the sundae. Then Carl retired a second time. After returning to the United States in 2009, Carl served as an educational supervisor for Concordia College, helping student teachers who wanted to specialize in science. He loved this job, as well as his finally reached the retirement in 2019 when health issues restricted him from doing any further work. Carl had many hobbies. He loved photography, hiking, watching birds, and traveling. Carl spent his entire life teaching Bible classes to both children and adults for local congregations. He was the spark that began the Great Northwest Evangelism Workshop events in the 1980s. He served as an educational consultant with a group who crafted the School Safety Bill, also known as the Oprah Winfrey Bill, which put into law that all people who work with kids must be fingerprinted and have background checks prior to working with children. Carl volunteered at local elementary schools helping kids with reading and math. For many years, he and Kathy volunteered at Multnomah Falls Visitor Center and also served as coaches and in coaching the Marriage Team organization, helping struggling couples to revitalize their marriages. They enjoyed doing things together. Above all of this, Carl loved his God, his family, and his many students over the years. On the morning of December 26th, Carl peacefully died at home. Almost 7 years of kidney dialysis, his body just wore out. Carl was preceded in death by his brother Keith in 1954 and his father Dudley in 1999. Carl is survived by his wife, Kathy, his sons, Craig, Bo, and Scott, his brother Gary, and his 103-year-old mother, Blanche Collins. his granddaughters and their moms, many nieces and nephews, as well as a host of friends and former students. Carl lived a life well lived. As we continue today in this celebration of life, please follow along in your program. You have the list of who the speakers are, what their relationship is to Carl, and just enjoy the time of fellowship and praising God for Carl's life.
It's funny how God works. And I don't mean funny, ha-ha. The way that God puts people in your life. So it was with Carl. In 1969, God put him at Dallas Christian. He was different. There was just something about Carl that kids migrated to him. And obviously I was one of those. It's really interesting how all of that works together. God has a plan. I see it. I believe it. I was talking about the Dallas years. You know, of course, I see, Craig over here. He had a little babysitter named Vivian, who always said that even at 3 and 4, you were an old soul. And you still are. But that's okay. I like it. Well, anyway, most of the Dallas Christian was a school with a lot of traditions. And one of the traditions was that the juniors and the seniors would have a big banquet together, and that the seniors would give the juniors their class ring. It was a big deal. Now, I know that's a little different than it is today, because, we could not use the P word, and the P word was prom. Because at Dallas Christian, we didn't dance and we didn't go with girls that did. So we had a banquet, Yahooty, and it was really a big deal. What would happen is that we would all get together, but in this particular instance, we decided that the bridge builder was going to be our theme, and in this we built a physical bridge. And I think we got a slide of the one that we built. There, okay, not that one, the other one. There you go. You see, we got a problem. It was way too steep, and it was slicker than all get out. It was like on skates, because it was all polyurethane and, the whole bit. But we tried to get some people decided they even wanted to get up, but it was like, well, if I stand here and I push, you will get up there. Some tried it, some didn't, but it was a hot mess. But nevertheless, we got it done. But the thing about that is that the theme, and if you'll look on the back of your program, you'll see that the bridge builder. The bridge builder was the theme of that. And even though with all the hilarity and everything else that was going on, Carl got the message of how he could be a bridge builder. And he was. And in fact, he will always be a bridge builder because of other people that he's helped across the bridge. Well, I got to tell you that couple of things. I'm going to tell off on Carl here real quick. I hope you don't mind, because it is a celebration, and we want to celebrate that. In 1974, this babysitter that Craig had became my girlfriend, and then she became my wife. And we decided to get married, and we hadn't told our parents yet. But Vivian made sure she told two people. That was Carl and Kathy Collins. And Carl presided at our wedding. And when Carl got up there, now this is, remember now, we don't have wireless mics. Everything, you know, the old preachers would get up there and have the big thing around them and everything. Well, anyway, at the church there, Carl couldn't get the thing undone to adjust it. And so he tried to put it over his head. It stuck right here. I can prove that because I have the audio tape of that, and it sounds like, you know, all this kind of mess going on. And so, nevertheless, he had to hold the mic by hand, and that was just one of the funny things. The real funny thing is, and he did not believe this, but he signed our marriage license in typical school teacher fashion with a red felt tip pen. He didn't believe it till I sent him a picture of it. He said, "Oh, I didn't do that." Yes, you did. Well, we shared many experiences, and, you know, we came back in 2024, and Carl did our vow renewal. 50 years. I don't think there's a person alive on the face of the earth that's done the first one in the 50. But it was so great. Sorry, my eyes are getting a little sweaty here. But I'll leave you with this. When we had breakfast with Carl and Kathy, that when we left them, Carl would always say, "I love you." Every time I talked to him on the phone or that we were together, he told us he loved us. That's how you become a bridge builder. You meet people with love right where they are, not where you want them to be. Carl was a master of that. The last thing I really want to say is, Carl, I love you.
I knew Mr. Collins first as my 8th grade biology teacher. The teacher with the New Testament on his desk, but cool stories to share. We always tried to get him talking, to shirk from his responsibility to teach science. And it did work to a certain extent, but he also told us how he was going to grade us. There were very certain requirements, and we had to meet those, or we were going to get a grade that we wouldn't like. At least that's the way he was talking. So at the end of my first semester, I came home, saw that grades had been sent, tore into the grades to see the A's and B's that I was accustomed to all the way down until I got to the last line, and there was a big fat C next to Collins. So I rode my bike up to the school. You see, I'd been used to teachers being willing to fudge on grades, to give me a B plus or B minus instead of a C plus. It happened all the time in my world. Problem was, it didn't happen in Mr. Collins' world. He explained that I didn't turn this one assignment in. My work wasn't quite up to expectations here. I got a C on the final exam. And that gave me a high C, just as I thought. About this time, his wife, Kathy, walked into the room, showing that this is a real person with a real family. I tried arguing a little longer, but to no effect. He did say to me, "Well, the good news is you have a real strong chance of bringing up your grade this next semester." Kathy has since told me that when I left, she asked him, "Who was that?" And he said, "Mark LaValle, a kid I'm working with." He didn't know how much working with he would be doing. After coaching me in track and teaching that second semester of biology, I had a friend who went to Mr. Collins' church, thought I should come, and was relentless about it. So finally, I went up to Mr. Collins' office and asked him to get this person to stop inviting me to church. He said he would talk to that friend. But would I be interested in getting some Chinese food during the summer? Now, to me, that sounded cool. Free food with a cool guy, so I said yes. Over wonton soup and fried shrimp, he came with his full philosophy. He said that he taught evolution as a theory, but without enthusiasm. He said that scientists have said that the universe had a beginning. They could tell somehow. And he asked me, "Have you ever stopped to think what was there before the universe came into existence?" I had never paused to think on things that deeply, and in my home it was assumed that there was no God. I argued. I sounded like I was engaging, but I actually was protecting myself from the truth that Carl was bringing. God, the person Mr. Collins believed was the creator, might have been there before the world began. "No worries," he said. "I know this is a lot to wrestle with, but here's my Bible." That was all marked up with Mr. Collins' wrestlings. "And you should read what the Bible has to say, beginning in Genesis. That's where the beginning of our universe is talked about." Several months later, after much spiritual transformation, I was baptized into Christ by Carl. He and Kathy mentored me in service. I taught first grade in church with Kathy. Went to a Bible teaching seminar with them. I learned Bible in church from Carl, and he even made the transition to Reynolds High School that next year. I went to their home for youth activities, saw the love that he had for his family. What mentorship. Christian students would sometimes gather in his class before school to pray, and he was a safe person to bring our questions and frustrations to. I even went to Harding University, just as he had, and later Columbia Christian as he had, and the whole time he was encouraging and mentoring and rooting me on. Paul says in 1 Corinthians 11 and verse 1, that the Corinthians should follow him as he follows Christ. That was the essence of the relationship between Carl and me, and later Carl and Kathy, and me and my wife, Shelley. Our relationship really took off after moving back to Vancouver from full-time ministry. They never claimed moral perfection. Carl had many questions about interpretations of the Bible. We, both couples, have had personal pain, and they were willing to share and to pray and to mentor. And what a beautiful fulfillment of what Paul told the Corinthians. After I moved back, I was reading a book called The God Hypothesis. The author said that we see irrefutable evidence that the universe is expanding. This is called redshift, the kind of light that's given off by stars that are moving far away from us. If the universe is expanding, then it used to be smaller. Rewind far enough and the stars and the galaxy and the whole universe could have been fit into this room that we're in right now. Rewind further and it could have been fit in your pocket. Rewind further and poof, it's gone. Nothing. Infinity small equals nothing. So we know that the universe began to exist. It had to have a cause, a timeless, spaceless, immaterial, massively powerful cause, a creator, you might say. He even had answers for people who like to bring up a multiverse theory due to the fine-tuning of our universe and how it just moves it back to the beginning of that. And therefore, if the God of the Bible was the cause of the universe, then every miracle in the Bible is possible. I was sharing this with Carl, and he said, it sounds like a cool book. But honestly, haven't I been trying to tell you that since the 8th grade? Yeah, Carl, you've been doing lots of God's work since I was in the 8th grade and well before. I am so confident that Carl is in heaven. And it's not because he's a great mentor, though he was. It's not because of sinless perfection. None of us is this. It is not because of flawless knowledge and reasoning, though he had much practical logic. And it's not because his heart was so large, though we all know it was. It is because Jesus entered into a relationship with Carl. One that involved him in learning and growing in Christ. Carl would be the first to say that not one of us gets to heaven because of any kind of perfection in that person. It is because of God's grace that every single person in this room is offered a place of relationship and mentorship that will involve a whole lot of change in them over time. But the good news is that every person can start on this journey, even if they're an arrogant 8th grader who thought he could game the system. And so, yes, I believe Carl is in heaven right now. A kind of 4th or 5th or 27th dimension in our way of speaking. Perhaps he's even hearing us right now. We just don't know for sure, but you can look at Revelation 6 and look at it. But when Jesus comes back, he is going to take Carl and every other believer who died in Christ with him. Those believers who are alive when Jesus comes back will ascend to meet him as the citizens of a freed city come out to meet their new leader. There will be on earth, as in heaven, a new heavens and a new earth with Jesus right in the center of it. And Carl will be with Jesus, resurrected with a body that's like Jesus' body after his resurrection, in which he both went through a locked door to get to the disciples, and in which he ate fish to say that he's not a ghost. Paul calls this body a spiritual body. And John tells us when he returns, we will be like him, for we will see him as he is. To family and friends who've lost a husband, a father, a friend, a mentor. I'm so sorry for all of our loss. But if there is one thing I am confident of, it is that Carl is all better now. He's just waiting to greet those who will continue on or who will begin a journey that he was on of learning more about Jesus, of letting him be our King, of finding a place that is constantly referred to in the New Testament as being in Christ. And for those missing Carl, for those who didn't get enough time with him, it is possible that the greatest thing that separates us from him is time.
I never met a handrail I didn't like in these later years. Carl came to Reynolds High School, and he was a fellow line coach. And I got to say right now that the world has got a giant hole in it. We lost a great man. He was a great one. The other day I was trying to think of a phrase that would typify Carl. And about 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm laying in bed thinking about this, and I thought, hey, here it is. He cared. He cared big time about everything. And I think people knew that, whether it was athletes, students, other people around him that he was working with. He cared about everybody. He cared about his athletes, he cared about his students, he cared about his family big time. He loved them all. When Carl came, Carl was a fellow offensive lineman, so we had a bond right there. Because offensive linemen, when you're playing, nobody really knows what you're doing out there. How many offensive linemen can you name in the NFL? Probably none. But the guys that play offensive line have great personal pride. And in coaching, Carl, not only did he want to teach what to do, but why you're doing it. That's one of the most important things. Is you can do something, but why you're doing it is equally important. We didn't really care about what the score at the end of the ball game was. What was important was the next day when you're brushing your teeth and you look in the mirror, can you look that guy in the eye and say, hey, I gave it my best shot. If you can do that, you're a winner. And he tried to convey that to all of his athletes, whether he was in football or basketball or track. Doing your best was the most important part of the whole thing. Taking pride in what you did and getting the job done. Everything else will take care of itself. In the classroom, same thing. Carl cared, not just what we were teaching, but why we were teaching it. Okay? He was a very devout Christian, no doubt about it. And he made no bones about that. He let you know that right away, up front. But he didn't lord it over anybody. He just lived the life. He and Kathy were a great team through the years, working through the church, counseling couples, working at summer camps, doing different things, just living the life. Not only did Carl walk the walk, he talked the talk. And you knew that, and I appreciated him for it and loved him for it. One story my wife reminded me of today. After a football game, we had lost. And Terry Houck and I, after we had a coaches get together afterwards, and Terry Houck and I looked at each other after this get together in the evening after the football game, and we said, hey, let's go out and get a beer. Okay? Turned to Carl and said, hey, you want to go out and have a beer with us? And Carl said, thanks, but no thanks, but I'll pray for you. He knew that we were a little off center, but we got the job done. He wasn't going to lord it over us, but he just made sure that where he stood on the whole subject matter. And the same thing was teaching science. Not only what we were teaching, why the beauty of the process that's going on. If you look around nature, if you look around, everything about the earth and the universe, it's a beautiful process. He saw that. And he like which has been said, he worked religion into the science of the whole thing. He was very practical, looked at both sides, adjusted what he was doing, came out that was best for him. This picture up here, you can see the picture, Carl, a little twinkle in his eye, a little half smile. He's up to something. In his teaching career in his classroom, he did some things that a lot of people may not notice. At one point he said, hey, special ed kids, they need a science program that teaches them science. That goes into some depth. So he got a hold of some English teachers and worked with talked these English teachers into working with him, putting together a program for some special ed kids that combined science and English. And by God, after he got done with this program, these kids could go out into a regular class and get the job done. Okay, and it's been said he got natural recognition for this program. It was a great one. But he just did that on the QT, on the quiet. He just did it. He didn't blow any horns about the whole thing. He just did it. He lived the life. And every now and then you get that twinkle in his eye and said, I have an idea. Okay, so I've been in black, deep holes with him up on Mount St. Helens, down at the Oregon coast with him on field trips. All of a sudden he said, we broke Reynolds High School up into houses, and we were the Adams house, which immediately became the Adams family. Okay, and after a while he said, hey, I have an idea. There's this out in Harney County, there's a Malheur Wildlife Refuge. That's a great geologic area, and it's a migratory path for birds coming through. Okay, fine, good, yeah. How about if we organize a spring trip over there and talk about the geology of the area and the birds and the animals and the fauna that are there. It's unique because it's in the middle of a desert and you got these two giant lakes. So birds flying by go, hey, someplace to sit down, take it easy for a bit. And they do that, so there's a lot of things coming through. I said, well, yeah, but this thing is in southeastern Oregon, out in the middle of nowhere. We can't just do it in an afternoon or a day. He said, well, how about if we do it in 4 days? We'll get some buses, we'll go over and we'll stay at the refuge out there. They had bunkhouses. We'll take 4 days, a day going, 2 days out there doing stuff, a day coming back. That's nuts. You're gonna take 100 sophomores and go out in the middle of nowhere for 4 days with these guys? He said, yeah, it's gonna be great. So we got science teachers, social studies teachers, English teachers. We were all together teaching in the Adams family. He got us all to buy into it. And next thing you know, we're getting on buses, heading out. We headed down to Bend, turned east, and headed out into nowhere. And a lot of these kids hadn't been out of Gresham. So you're getting out there and you're getting further and further away from civilization, and they're going, where are we going? Carl chuckles and says, see that mountain ridge over there? Yeah, we're going past that one. Kids are going, geez, they kidnapped us all. We're gone. So we get out there and we spend these 2 days. And the whole thing about a field trip is you got to keep them busy and have stuff for them to do. So we had worksheets and things from going. They did English things, did social studies things. So it's a great history area. There's a great history of the area. So out on this trip, these kids are going, God, where in the heck are we? Because out in the Malheur area, if you can see a house on the horizon, you're in a crowded development. But with the teachers we had a couple teachers that were from that area, that taught at Reynolds High School. And they talked to the kids and said, these people are not antisocial. If they don't see anybody for a month, they're okay with that. But if anybody needs any help, everybody comes together and helps them out. And so we took these kids and we started this thing way back when, 4 days, going there and getting back and out there. It was a great trip. After both Carl and I retired, Tad Rainey kept the program going. And I'm not sure, but I think they might be still doing it because it's that big a deal. And when we first started, we thought, are you nuts? Carl said, yeah. I probably am, but this is going to be a great deal. And it turned out to be a great deal. And that's the way Carl was. In his classes, when he and Kathy were a great pair, working through their church and doing things, living the life. In Taiwan, going back to the old why you do stuff, some of the parents were concerned that he wasn't getting through the entire book. And he said, well, yeah, but doing these labs and stuff and field trips and things, it takes up time and we don't have time to get through a lot of this stuff. And they said, well, the kids need facts. They need to have facts, all the facts from this book for some fictitious tests they may have to take down the line someplace. Carl said, no. They need to know what's going on, but they also need to know why this is going on. And we had several conversations over the years about just skipping through stuff. Mr. Valley said he was easily distracted. We'd be skimming over something and a kid would raise their hand and ask a question. Well, instantly pops into your head, well, this is important too. They need to know this. They're curious about it, and off we go, off into some tangent someplace, talking about why such and such is going on. And that's the whole process. And that was Carl, living the life, walking the walk, and everything. And I loved him for it. It's been my pleasure to be Carl's friend for 50 some odd years. And we had many, many conversations about all kinds of stuff and things. And, just hashed out stuff and back and forth, talking about it, evolution. Evolution's a process. You don't have to come up with 10,000 birds. All you got to do is come up with one good bird. There's a process available to us to fill in all the niches. Okay, where that first bird came from, we're not concerned about. Carl knew where the first bird came from. He knew that. But then the process can happen. So that's what Carl was a coach and science teacher, saw the beauty in things, saw how things work together, and was just a great person. Proud of his family. Craig and Scotty, just they're doing great things with their life now. He and Kathy did great things with their life. So it's my pleasure to know the Collins family. My pleasure to be a great friend of Carl Collins. So when I was putting this together, my wife said, you can't talk about everything. You'll be there for 3 hours. And I don't know how long I've been up here now, but she said, you just need to hit the highlights. Carl's life was a highlight. So thank you very much for listening to me. And I just got to say, I just appreciated the guy and loved him dearly. Thank you.
I love you, Lord, for your mercy never fails me. All my days I've been held in your hand. From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. 'Cause all my life you have been faithful, and all my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire, and in darkest night, you are close like no other. I've known you as a father, I've known you as a friend, and I have lived in the goodness of God. Hey, 'cause all my life you have been faithful. Oh, yes, you have. And all my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. Your goodness is running after me. When the night is falling and the day is done, I can hear you calling, come, I will come, while you sing over me. When the night surrounds me, all my dreams undone, I can hear you calling, come, I will come, while you sing over me. When the night would hide my way, I will listen until I hear you say, how I love you, child, I love you. How I love you, child, I love you. How I love you. How I love you, child, I love you. How I love you, child, I love you. How I love you. When the night surrounds me, all my dreams undone, I can hear you calling, come, I will come, while you sing over me. When the night would hide my way, I will listen until I hear you say, how I love you, child, I love you. How I love you, child, I love you. How I love you. How I love you, child, I love you. How I love you, child, I love you. How I love you. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. When this life is over and the race is run, I will hear you calling, come, I will come, while you sing over me.
Hey everybody, thanks for being here today. It's good to see a lot of faces here. I'm Scotty, I'm Carl's youngest son, and I thought a lot about what I'd say to you all today, but quite frankly, we all knew the same person who my dad was to us as a father was very much the same person he was to all of you as either a teacher or a friend. He really just was the same guy to everybody. A lot of comments have been made that he was special here, that he cared, and all of that is true. My dad had an infectious joy and humor. And it's going to be missed. But he had a real simple secret of why he was that to all of you, to me, to my mom, to my brother. My dad was the last person he thought about. Every conversation you had with him was authentic. When he cared, he really cared because he didn't think anything of himself. If you thought he was an egotistical guy, you were wrong. You misread the situation. To a fault, he cared, down to giving lunch money that was for me to one of his students, which happened quite a bit. And he would say, "Sorry, Scotty, you got to have tuna fish," which he sucked at making. Because I gave the $20 for lunch money to some student, who doesn't have parents that love them or doesn't have someone to take care of them. And that was a real thing that he did quite a bit. He infinitely cared about everybody else. He invested his mind and his effort into all of you with very little thought for himself. And I heard about that from my mom quite a bit at times. But he would overextend himself to do anything he could for you. I used to get frustrated with him because I would say, "Dad," I was like, "can you just be serious for a second?" Because he was always joking, he was always making a funny face or whatever, and I would just, "Dad, please just be serious just for a moment." And he just couldn't. He would try to get his face that way, it just wouldn't work. I learned very early on not to always take everything seriously that he said. He was definitely a joker. I think my first lesson of that is when I was in first grade. We were out trick-or-treating, and as he would just treat everybody with such joy and kindness and care, and he was just super nice to this one lady that answered the door that where we were trick-or-treating, and we were walking away, and I said, "Dad," I said, "who was that? Like, you seem to really know her." And he said, "Oh, that was my ex-wife." And no other qualification, my little 6-year-old mind kind of broke in half, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, like there was another family before ours. And she lives right down the street." So I told that to my first grade teacher. I wrote it in a story the next day, and she called my mom saying, "Hey, like Scotty's like telling some stories that he thinks are true, like, what's going on here?" And I remember waiting at the house that night because Dad, like always, would spend time after school with his students and then coach, so we were used to him coming home late. And I remember him walking in the door. I can see his face right now. I remember him walking in the door and Mom saying, "Scotty's talking about something about your ex-wife?" And he just goes, you know that look? Yeah. So I knew then it was going to be a wild ride with this guy. I don't know what there really is to say that would do justice to the life my dad lived. All of you here today are testament to that. I am definitely more of a personal person. I'm looking forward to after this of being able to speak with people who have stories. I want to hear them. I want to share them. That's how my dad was. He engaged with people. We would be out and sometimes we would just sit on a bench and I'd be like, "Dad, like I'm ready to go home. We've been out, you've been dragging me out here. I want to go watch cartoons or whatever." And he would still just be sitting there on a bench just looking at people. He just enjoyed being in this life, in this world, on this earth. There was, as he was getting sick, and he was starting to forget some things, I made it a point to bring up old memories, and there was a couple students who had made a video. I wish I could share with you today. The audio is not great, and we needed to cut for time. But two students hid a camera in the early 90s in his classroom, which was no small feat, and had spliced together a video basically with all my dad's animated teaching in biology, talking about different biological processes, but he's making all kinds of movements. I'm not going to try to imitate them here. He was the one that did them well. But classroom full of laughter and all this stuff, and they had spliced together this video with the movie Spies Like Us. And I found that video later on, and I thought that it was some like secret video of who my dad really was, that he was this spy, and he was really just pretending to be a teacher and all this. But of course, I knew he was a joker. But anyway, I found the two students who made it, and they were able to share some messages. One of them became a teacher because of the influence that my dad had on his life. The other one said that the advice that he gave him had a lasting effect in the success of his life. But a beautiful moment at the end of that, they're on a field trip, and at the end of the movie, and he just looks over at him and he says, "Pat shared this with me. It's a beautiful day, and I'm glad we could spend it with each other." And that was my dad. He just wanted to be there with us. He wanted to show us the things that he loved, and he wanted to impart that love to all of us. If you were one of his football players, he would tell you at this moment to keep your head up, your tail down, and your feet driving. If you were a student or anyone else, he would say, always do what's right, always do your best, always respect others. His legacy lives with everybody here in this room and all the other lives that he touched. And I really appreciate you all taking the time today to remember that love that he gave all of us. And I hope that we can have a piece of that joy and also a piece of that selflessness, and truly investing ourselves and our care and our love into others before we think of ourselves. Because that's who my dad was to me, and that's who I saw him be to everyone else.
And that was your friend, and that's your dad, and that's your husband, and that's my big brother. I guess I've known Carl longer than anybody that's in this room. The only reason why I mention that is because I know another person that's been mentioned that has known Carl longer than any of us. Yes, our mother is not only 103, she really is, in fact, going on 104. Mom, you do not have to outlive Abraham's wife, Sarah. I keep telling her that. And I tell the Lord, I say, Lord, listen, you can take me, Lord. I'm ready to go. My wife is gone. I mean, I'm ready to eternity. And I said, but when you do, if you consider that, Lord, I got a list of things, and it includes my mom. And the Lord says, I'll get back to you on that one. I'll get back to you. Mom and Dad never read stories to us at bedtime, never read Bible stories, but they made sure that we were at every single Bible class on Sundays and Wednesdays and Vacation Bible School and Camp Yamhill. And so Carl listened to all of that. And he heard this story one time. And it said, this story was, and God, Yahweh, our God, so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever would believe on him would not perish, but have eternal life. And just like that night when the Lord called Abraham out of the tent to tell him about what the stars meant, Carl believed God. And from that point, he moved to get as close to God as he could. And what do you think happened right after that? As Carl moved closer to God, what did God do? He moved closer to Carl. And what was the result? All these things, you've said them all, you guys are amazing. If you're here, Carl loved you. There's two beautiful granddaughters here that knew when they went to Grandma and Grandpa's house, they would find joy. There's people here maybe and maybe not, but there are people who sat with Carl and Kathy in marriage counseling, and they were taught, and then they were shown peace. Mark, I know you had a hard time in biology, and I'm sorry. But I really tried to tell Carl, I said, Carl, you got to have patience with these kids. And he goes, I know. And I says, no, Carl, it's biology, for crying out loud. Why can you do, Mark, I tried to get him into world history, but he wouldn't listen. But he had patience, and you all knew that. Kathy got a phone call yesterday from the center where he was, and they said Carl was a rock star here. He was kind to everyone. My story of kindness, real quick, I hope. My dad got his feet hurt in the war. Every single night, Carl and I rubbed my dad's feet. And we took turns every other night. And when it was Carl's turn, I just went in my room and played Army Men. But Carl, when it was my turn, Carl made sure he stayed in there, and he made sure that I did enough where Dad got some relief. At that young age, and I'm talking about, we rubbed his feet 7 days a week, always. And we both say to this day, we would say, man, if we could just rub Dad's feet one more time. He was kind. Do you know why Carl doesn't have a ton of money? Money's important. We need to manage it. But he doesn't have a ton of money because he valued something else that was more valuable. Goodness. Goodness is more valuable than money, and he knew that, and he learned that long ago. And I'm just going to mention, you need to make an appointment with Kathy and go see his office. And there's more goodness on the walls of that office than any of us might have in any bank account. We can do good with money, but you can't buy goodness. Goodness comes from God and from the heart. Carl was faithful. Heard the song? Have you ever said, I don't want to be taken advantage of? Have you ever thought that way? You just take advantage of me. Carl, no. You take advantage of me. If the people that I love the most take for granted that I will do whatever they need or whatever they ask, Carl, would you please go to the store and get some eggs and milk? Love to. Would you please go pick up somebody? Love to. No, you take Carl for granted. Because when you take him for granted, and the people that love him and that he loves the most can know for sure that he's going to do whatever he can do to help, that honors him. I promise, it honors him. And you know what else? Sometimes, even from a sweet grandchild, you know what comes? Thank you, Grandpa. Nothing better than that. Now he's blessed. Gentle. All these things, you guys have said it. He had gentleness. And he had the self-control to manage all these things that, because, where did these things come from? He wasn't born with them. He had the self-control. He was given to these by God. And as Carl got closer, God came closer and he said, Carl, here's my Holy Spirit. Take these fruits. And Carl took those and you've all witnessed, you're the witnesses. You all know it. The fruits of love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. That was Carl. So what's the result? You remember when Jesus said, remember this? We all probably remember this. There's no greater love than for a man to give his life for a friend. Do you know what the very next verse says? You know what Jesus said immediately after that? Maybe you do. But listen, I'm going to tell you now. Please never forget. Never forget what Jesus said next. He said, I call you friend. I call you friend. No greater love than to lay down your life for a friend. I call you friend. So, and this is with Ernie too. I thought of both of them, but Carl is before the Lord, Yahweh our God. And Jesus Christ is standing there with him. You can see the scars on his hands and his feet and his side. And Jesus says, Father, this is my friend. And with the joy that fills an eternity, and because of everything that you guys said, you can't earn this, by the way. What I'm telling you is a free gift. There's no greater love that a man give his life for a friend. You don't earn friendship. You're adopted into friendship. We are adopted, and Jesus took us. And the Lord Yahweh says to Carl, well done, good, faithful servant. Enter into the joy of your God and Father who loves you. You honor us for being here. God bless you all, and best wishes.
What we have witnessed this afternoon is Carl Collins. That's who he was. When Carl and Kathy were over in Taiwan, they asked Cheryl and I to come over and visit them. We didn't think we could do that, but we showed up in their hotel. I walked down the stairs and had to bend my head because it was so low going down. But while we were there, they took us out to dinner with another couple, and Kathy will remember this. And Carl ordered chicken feet. That was a delicacy in Taiwan. He ordered chicken feet and brought them out, and he said, Don, here, have one. And there was a stray dog walking around, and I decided to put it down on the ground. And so the dog went over and smelled of it and walked away. And I walked away. One of the last times that Carl went to dialysis, I went to visit him while he was there. And the person that was taking care of him said, Carl taught me about Jesus. He was working. He knew it. An abbreviation of Matthew 25:21 through 23 says, "His Lord said to him, 'Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Enter into the joy of the Lord.'" This afternoon, would like to ask you to be seated. Stay seated, please, while the family makes their way to the foyer in preparation of meeting you there and greeting and telling stories. So Kathy and the family,